you, Mr. William, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you today and be with your group as well. And I hope now my conversation with you will be beneficial to you and to your friends and group members. As thank you again for reading the short bio. As, you mentioned I was born and raised in did my undergraduate studies there, and came to the United States in to finish my graduate studies, and I got my master's at the University of in Morocco. I studied sociolinguistics, which is the study of language and its impact on society, and the study of the society and its impact on language, and also studied language and gender, especially the use of gender and politeness vis-a-vis, male and female, especially in Arabic societies and Western societies. And also did my studies also in code switching, which is the changing of codes based on the changing of the environment, or the changing of the people you are talking to. So my study was mostly focused in Moroccan society, and how Moroccan people code switch from one language to another based on the situation that they are in, or based on the people that they are talking to, either their age, their status, or their gender. And of course, as you mentioned, when I came here, I did my master's degree in sociolinguistics as well, and started my journey teaching Arabic after, and started teaching at the University of, and at the same time, or a year later, started teaching as well in University of both of them are private colleges, and one of the few liberal colleges in and in 2012 I was offered a job at the university to kind of start their Arabic program, because of my experience in starting Arabic programs in those previous universities, and the rest is history.
Wow. So this journey for you has pretty much been from the time you came out of the womb, from birth. Were you in the town that you grew up in? Was it an Arab speaking town, or did you speak Arabic there?
So talking about Morocco, Morocco kind of is a multilingual society, very diverse in its geography and its history, and also its people and the languages they speak. So I was born, or I'm what we call in the West a Berber, but what the word that we use in North Africa and in Morocco is in particular is Amazigh. So I'm an Amazigh, native of North Africa. My parents are both from two different Amazigh tribes. So being born in Morocco, the first language was Amazigh, which we spoke in the house, but also Arabic, because both my parents spoke Arabic. So Amazigh and Arabic were both two languages that we spoke in the house. Add to that, my father was a kind of a francophone, and did his study in French. And Morocco, the official language is of course Arabic and Berber, but French plays a dominant part in the society. So growing up, I spoke all these three languages from early age: Amazigh, Arabic, and French. Of course, each has its own, kind of situation each was spoken in an environment and with a goal. But I can say that I'm fluent in all three of them because I started learning them from an early age.
This is a question that wasn't that wasn't pre-planned, but I got to ask you this.
Yes.
Because many of us in the group, we study historical migration patterns and things like that. We're interested in cultural activity, ancient antiquity records and things like that. So we get into like a lot of the North African tribes, South African tribe, West African tribes, and Central Africa, things like that, Middle East. And is it true that they are, because you said that you a Berber, right? Is it true that there are Berbers that not only is your hue and complexion, but would be my complexion?
Of course, yes, sir. Yeah.
Wow.
Like if you go to Morocco, you have different tribes of Berbers. My parents, for example, talking about my parents, they both come from different tribes. One from the south, and one from the Atlas Mountains, which is central, Morocco. But of course, the more you go south, the more you see Berber tribes that have different complexities that the northerners, or the people who are in the north. The tribes or the Berber tribes of the north have complexity, and features similar to Europeans. You see when it comes to the height and the color of the skins and the colors of, for example, the eyes and the hair. Similar to Europeans. But the more you go south, you see tribes that are similar in complexity to, let's say, West African, for example. So you have this diversity in the Berber people themselves,
Oh, so that's awesome.
Yeah, different tribes. And theoretically, there are two theories about the history of the Berber people or the Berbers that, some tribes came from Yemen through the Arabia and through the Sahara Desert and inhabited North Africa. And another tribe or Berber tribes that came from North Europe, which is what we refer to nowadays in kind of Sweden, Germany, in north of Europe, and came south and inhabited also in North Africa. Of course, when we're talking about millions of years, thousands of years ago, there was not North Africa and Europe, So that's why you have one people, but very diverse, one language. Of course, in the language itself, it's diverse in dialect, but it's one Amazigh language, one Amazigh people, but of course, diverse in their, the way they look and their culture as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up Yemen because when I did my DNA test a few years ago, I had a strong Yemen that showed up in my DNA, and so that was very interesting, as well as Moroccan Jew is in my DNA as well.
well, we share the same DNA, William, because I did my DNA as well a couple of years ago, and yeah, I have a Jewish DNA, and of course some Arabic DNA, but the majority of it is not Berber,
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So let's get into the next. I was going to play this video. I don't know how the internet may act, but we'll play it. If not, sure. I do have the clip. What I wanted to look at as far as the language is concerned, but let's just kind of look at this. This is Stephen Graham. This is what I was telling you about earlier. Who is a great friend of mine. So let's see here.
Here I stand in the Mila, the Jewish quarters of the Medina of Esrauya, formerly known as Magadur. In the 18th century, before and even to a time period after, this portion of the fortified city was home to a thriving Israelite community Today, as you see, it's only just a thing of the past. Although people live here, all of whom are Muslim, the only remembrance, a reminder, are the derelict buildings and heaps of rubble. Who were these Jews of the Medina in Mogador, who according to history were great tradesmen and were favoured and respected by some of the greatest sultans of the past, including Mohammed bin Abdullah, the grandson of the famous Black Sultan, Musa Ismail ibn Sharif. The answer to the identity of the Jews who once lived here during the period of the great sultans isn't found thousands of miles away in what is known as the modern state of Israel, where mass migration from Morocco has taken place, but right here in the Medina walls. Here lies the true identity of the Israelite community that once lived here, in the ancient synagogue that has been restructured and rebuilt. Here lies the truth that many seek after. Inside this restored synagogue, there are pictures everywhere. Historical evidence is right before my eyes. This extraordinary building has much to be desired. Here inside the synagogue, known as the Synagogue of Hamim Binto, you find some very interesting pictures of the Jews of Mogador. Upon closer examination of the four pictures, it is clear to see that the Moroccan Jews of the past were highly melanated beings. Here we see black Jews walking through the Medina. Below we see these same dark-skinned Israelites at the Bab el-Masa in Mogador, which was built in 1769 during the reign of Mohammed bin Abdullah as part of the reconstruction of the fortification of the city. As you can see, there is an engraved inscription above the arch as to when and who constructed this forted gate. In this recent picture of the same door, a close and more detailed inscription can be seen.
Are you familiar with that area?
It's funny, William, because I have two favorite cities in Morocco. And one of them is Mogador, which is this city. It's in the kind of the south of Morocco. And my other favorite, city is in the north. But I love Mogador. And anytime or every time I go to Morocco, I visit this city, and I have beautiful memories growing up and going there with my family or by myself or later on with my wife. And I can tell you more about this city that I think you will love this city even more if I tell you a little bit about it after I answer your questions.
Yeah, because we were planning to before COVID, because he wanted to go back, and I said, you're not going to go without me. So we were planning on going together. He was telling me how awesome it is, just the history there and things like that. He said I would love it. But let's look at this inscription. What is this inscription? Would this be Arabic? What language would this be, if you're familiar with that?
This is definitely Arabic. Yeah. The reason I'm saying this is that I can definitely read some of it. Of course, it is written in calligraphy, and there are different styles of calligraphy, as you probably know. But even for somebody who, let's say, doesn't know much about Arabic calligraphy, he or she'll still be able to read this if he or she is an Arab or students of Arabic. So the reason I say it's Arabic, of course, because it's written in Arabic alphabets, but also I understand some of what it says. For example, on the top it says Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah in Arabic means thanks to God. So Alhamdu is thanks, and Lillah is to God. So thanks to God, thanks to God. And we say this saying a lot in Arabic as either if you're talking about Muslims or Christians or Jews who speak Arabic, they use this saying a lot. هذا الباب, this door, and I think this is the one above the door of the that he showed in the video. Yeah, that gate. Yeah. So this gate. Yeah, I think this gate. Not clear here what it says, but this gate is a kind of a triumph of the king Muhammad Ali Alayad was built by somebody, you know. So talking about, I think when this gate was finished, yeah, and that this gate kind of is a triumph of the king who was ruling the city or Morocco at that time, you know.
Awesome.
But if
okay.
if I spend again, if I spend a little bit of time on it, I'll
Right.
be very happy to kind of give you the whole translation of it. But it's definitely Arabic.
Now, how much when you're dealing with translating, how much time does it take to go into looking at something, looking at characters, letters, inscriptions? Does it depend on the clarity of it, or what is the process of examining? Like you said, if I had time, I can examine this.
The difficulty with the translation is when the Arabic text is in calligraphy, and there are 6 styles or 6 famous styles of calligraphy in the Muslim or the Arab world. Of course, there are others that are not that famous. So, and each style has its, of course, characteristics. So, to be able to read that, you should definitely know the style of calligraphy that you are reading, you know, at first. So I might be, good, let's say, reading or drawing or writing in one style of calligraphy, but I might not be, good in another or others. And if the script is in something that I'm not familiar with, it will take me a lot of time to decode it, as we will say, you know, because again, there's a lot of arts that was put in it to kind of show or make this language looks beautiful and flowing, you know, which we don't do when we write our everyday writing, you know. Right. If you give me a book or a magazine or, a paper that was typed, you know, I'll be, happy to translate it to you in a couple of minutes, you know. It won't take more than that. But when it's calligraphy, in a calligraphy that goes back to, let's say, hundreds or thousands of years, it definitely needs somebody who's first, who knows the style that the writing is, and also who can decode, what is written.
And that's interesting that you went into the calligraphy part, because I was advised to, the inscriptions that I sent you, I was advised by someone else before it got to you that, hey, listen, it's not clear enough for me, but you need to contact a calligrapher, to maybe bring out some of the things. So that it's going to be interesting when we get into talking about the inscriptions that I sent you, or the letters that I sent you. Yeah. Let's look at this. So the next slide is interesting, because another professor told me, hey, this looks like Farsi, and so could you explain why would it, the comparative or comparing Farsi to Arabic, are there similarities or what?
They use they're similar in the alphabet, so they use the same alphabet, which is the Arabic alphabet. So Farsi use the Arabic alphabet. Probably the reason why that person kind of advise you maybe, or to kind of ask you to maybe consider Farsi, is that he probably was able to see a letter there that looked like Arabic, but was not able to read the whole thing as Arabic. And therefore, if he's not familiar with Farsi, as I am, I don't know Farsi, I can read it,
Right.
I can read it, but with the, the exception of some few words that have Islamic background, I might not be able to tell you what the other words mean. So yeah, I can see why that other person told you it might be Farsi, because there was a letter that looks like Arabic, but him and me, we couldn't read it as Arabic. We couldn't read the whole word. So we're assuming, and I didn't assume that, but he's assuming that it's Farsi. For me, I still think that it was not Farsi, you know, or it is not Farsi, or it's not even Ajami, as you emailed me in your question yesterday.
Yeah.
Because one of the characteristics of Arabic is the connecting letters, you know, the letter connect to each other as we do with English in cursive, you know, with few exceptions. There are 6 letters that don't connect to what comes after them. All the others connect to what comes before them and connect to what comes after them. And I noticed that some of those letters were not connected in the script that you sent me.
Okay, Professor, hold on. You're getting ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
But this is good. This is good because people are commenting and saying how good this is, and they're commenting. But I see David Royal, who I was telling you, the Hebrew linguist, he put Marabi in a fist pump. So
yeah, Maghrebi, since I'm from the Maghreb. Yeah, so North Africa, we refer to it as the Maghreb in English, or in Arabic also. Yeah. So
awesome. So I want to get into something else.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Professor.
No, so just to again conclude the Farsi thing. Yeah, we share the alphabet, but we don't share the vocabulary or most of the vocabulary. You know, so I'll be able to read Farsi, but I won't be able to understand it. You know.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask you this next question, because this is something that I've been kind of studying, and there's a divide about this conversation about Syro-Aramaic, the Quran version of. Are you familiar with the Quran version of Syro-Aramaic? There was a German that was kind of pushing this notion. There's a video. I'm not going to play it for the sake of time, but the lettering and the way you look at it, it's not connecting as well with the way Arabic would. And in this aspect, and I know you mentioned Ajami, and you've taken that off the table as far as the script that we're going to look at, the characters that we're going to look at that I sent you. But in Ajami, what is the difference in Ajami and I guess I would say the modern Arabic script of writing?
So Ajami, basically, uses the same Arabic alphabet, like let's say Farsi does, and use some alphabets to refer to some sounds that are in other languages that don't exist in Arabic. For example, when we talk about sub-Saharan languages or dialects, there's some sounds in those languages that don't have or don't exist in Arabic, or don't have letters in Arabic. So they use the same sounds or the same letters to refer to those to those sounds don't exist, but it's still the same alphabet. I will be able again to read Ajami. I'll be able to read it because it has Arabic alphabet. There might be some letters that I might not pronounce because I don't know those sounds, but overall I will be able to read it. And I was not able to read that script that you sent me, and that's what made me think that again it's not Ajami, because there were some letters there that don't look like Arabic and don't connect like the Arabic letters do.
Okay, awesome, yeah. Awesome. So let's go ahead here and move to this is what I sent you before. I sent you this, and I sent you the hypothetical.
Exactly.
And so let's kind of get into this. So there was one professor that made a statement, and I'm quoting him here. Now, I showed you the emails from the other professor that said that it's not a West African script, even though it's evocative, which means it brings strong type of a strong resemblance, but it's not Arabic itself in any script, right? But in this,
The people who built these pews paid homage to Christ, but also left a surprising trace of another African religious past, Islam.
This is Arabic type of writing.
What does that statement mean when a professor looks at something that says this is an Arabic type of writing? Is he saying that it's Arabic, or is he saying this is just kind of similar? It looks like Arabic.
Say it again, William. What did he say exactly in his email? This is
on the screen. It says this is an Arabic type of writing.
Oh, and so this is what he said. That's what you typed on the screen in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I typed that in the PowerPoint. I was quoting what he said after he examined what he looked at. He said it's an Arabic type. Now, for me, when I look at that, and this is just my opinion,
yeah,
it's saying a type of, it looks like. But you're the professor, so you can let me know what does that statement mean when someone says a type of something. I
can't speak for him, but the only thing I'm getting from this is probably he's referring to the types of calligraphy, the styles of calligraphy, that this is a form of Arabic writing or of Arabic calligraphy. But, when we talk about Arabic as a language, it is written one way, in one way. We all write the same way, We all have let's say, if you're on a keyboard and you want to type, typing will look the same way. But the calligraphy art, is different from one type to another. So again, I'm just assuming that this is what he means by Arabic types of writing, that is Arabic styles of calligraphy,
Gotcha. Okay, so let's move on here. Let's move to the hypothetical, because we wanted to cover all bases. So, and I want to quote what you said in your email. You said, I am hesitant to agree with the hypothetical image. The name of the surah 114 is Al-Nas. In Arabic, it looks this way. And of course, brother, and I think this is the sin. Am I correct here?
Yes, that's the last one. Yeah. So we start from right to left. Yes, sir.
Right. We read from right to left. So, and then you says the letters in the markings are not connected as they should in Arabic. A native speaker of Arabic wouldn't write it that way. Also, people write verses from surahs and not the names of surahs. What did you mean by that, Professor?
So again, the two reasons that I gave, one is a linguistic reason, and one is a cultural reason. The first one, like I mentioned, it's not connected, and we can talk about that later. But the second one is more of a cultural. Let's say, and then here we're talking about Arabic in connection to Islam. Most, if not all, writings on any kind of artifact, wood, leather, gold, silver, stones, whatever it is, when you look at it in the Muslim world, it's either the name of God, the name of the prophet, praises of God or praises of the prophet, or verses, verses from the Quran, sentences. In the Quran is I'm sure Mr. William, it's a book of chapters, and each chapter we call it a surah. So a chapter, let's say, is the modern way of calling it. In Islam, we call it surah. A verse, we call it ayah in Arabic. That's a verse. And that's what people will write on their artifacts, because the verse is what's important to them, not the name of the chapter, not the name of the surah. For example, An-Nas is one of the most important, not to say that the other ones are not important, but one of the most important surahs in the Quran, because it's short. It's very short. It's a short every kid in the Arab or Muslim world will know it by heart. You know, it's one of those first surahs that you learn as a kid. So again, for anybody who's Muslim, I don't see why they will write the name and write the whole chapter, because it's just like 2 verses or 3 verses. It is very, you know, short, or at least they can write a verse from it, you know. And there are very, you know, important verses in this surah that can be written in calligraphy that people will have in their houses, will have in their offices, will have give as gift, whatever the case is. But I have never seen an artifact where the only scripture or the writing on it is a name of the chapter.
Wow.
It's not. People don't do that, you know.
Wow.
And I'm talking like I'm sure, like if I ask you, for example, about, you know, let's say what Christian people will have written from the Bible on their artifact at home, you know, you will definitely tell me some very famous things that people will have either as pictures or as writing, you know, in their houses. And for Muslims, what they will have are verses, names of God, name of the prophet, praises, but not the name of the, you know, of the chapter, because what is it for? You know, what is it?
So Professor, let me ask you, in a hypothetical aspect, why would someone write it this way? I guess to bring the perspective that this could possibly be a surah. Like, why would they connect it that way when it's not? Because looking at it, and we're going to get into the calligraphy here in a minute, and some things that he shared with me, and why certain things are connected. But why would they connect it that way and make it look like that? I mean, it just is a hypothetical. I mean, yeah. This is a hypothetical presentation that was presented. So, yeah. But I'm just trying to understand, because there are other markings. If we look at it, the image, there are other markings that are even here, that are here. You know, wouldn't those be a factor in the equation of trying to present something? You know, like in Hebrew, you know, you would have a yod, which would kind of look like this, but you know, just trying to bring an understanding to what we're looking at. I would think you would have to look at every marking on there to try to bring it together. If it's really saying that,
no, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, go ahead,
but I agree with you. I agree. You have to look at every little details. I believe to make that, you know, a judgment. And you know, I agree with you when you talked about these markings, like those 3 slashes. You know,
yeah, right here.
If you want to, yeah, right there. Again, you know, we have dots in Arabic, you know, and we have symbols, okay, in Arabic. So dots, of course, dots are part of the letters, okay? They're just part of the letter. Some letters will have dots in them. Some might have 2, 3, below, above. Anyway, any letter, you know, is different than the other. But you will see a lot of dots in Arabic. We also have symbols that we put on the letters. And some of those symbols are either vowels, you know, or absence of vowels, or, for example, emphasis, you know. A lot of, you know, we have about 12 symbols in Arabic. None of the symbols that we have, and there are 12, will look like these 3 things that we have in the middle, you know, those 3 things that you showed me. We have double something like this, you know, if it's just the 2 of them, double, we do have those in Arabic, but we only put them at the end of the word, not in the middle, not in the beginning. And that's what, again, brings me back to say that it's probably not Arabic, because even if we had 2 and they were in the middle, I will still say that's probably not Arabic. It looks like Arabic. It might be a language that may be like, you know, another Semitic language. It might be something that's totally different, and it just happened that it looks a little bit like Arabic in this example. But here we have 3, and we don't have anything like that in the middle of the word. You know, we don't have.
I have about 40 of these kind of images and whatnot, and that were sent. And so I'll send them to you later. And all of them, Professor, all of them are not connected. They're all not connected. But this one, you know, you kind of look that way. But here's, I want to go to the next thing here for the sake of time here. And so when I was having this conversation with the calligrapher, right? And so we were looking at this, and he was telling me about all of these blotches. Like here, you have a blotch here. You have a blotch here. You have all of these different things. And he blew them up. And he said, when you look at this, and I know in the hypothetical, there was a connection to make this a sin. But he says here, if you look at the marking here, the way it starts here, it loops around to here and it ends here. There's a space in the between this, which indicates, he said, that's probably a blotch in the wood, the same way the blotches are around the inscriptions. So he says this is more than likely a blotch because of the fact that they end almost looking like a horseshoe in a way. It ends here, and this particular letter, these two shouldn't be connected the way the hypothetical was presented. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, yeah, I think the last one, I would agree with it, because this letter right here that you showed, I'm sorry, I'm trying to use the arrow. The second letter, the kind of the one that goes up. You know?
Professor, do you need me to allow you to?
If you don't mind, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me.
If that's possible. If not,
yeah, I can do it.
No worries.
Let's see here. Okay. All right. You should be able to do it now.
Do you see my? If I move the mouse, do you see the arrow?
Hold on. Let me see here. Go ahead and try to move it again.
I'm moving it now.
I can't see it, but I can see it on the screen. I can't see it on the laptop, on the PowerPoint, but they can see it.
That's good. So anyway, that long or tall letter that goes high, you know, goes up.
Right.
That's what we call a one-way connector. It's not supposed to be connected to what comes after it. So I agree with this person that you quoted here, that these two shouldn't be connected. You know. So
right.
Yeah, so this one doesn't connect to this one. But again, this one looks like what an Arabic letter will look like, but we're missing the dots. Again, this letter in Arabic always have two dots below it. This one in the beginning, I see that something might be a dot, you know. So again, now, this will sound like now, and this nay, but I should see a dot. This, if probably these are two dots below, this can look like an Arabic word. But again, by itself, I know what it means, but it might not make sense to the scripture that you have as a whole, you know.
Right. Okay, let's go to the next slide, Professor, here. Let's see here. So this is the next one. And so this is where again, in the hypothetical, all of this was, these two were connected. This would look like a backwards R, if in English. But here, this is connected as though it's all one, to present the surah on the hypothetical. But if you clearly look at the image when it blowed up, these two letters should not be connected.
And they shouldn't. Again, I think the most important thing for me here that I'm looking at is the three kind of symbols on the top, you know?
Right.
That, again, if those are symbols, those are not Arabic symbols. They're definitely not dots, because they're not, you know. So if they're not dots and if they're not symbols in Arabic, what are they, you know? And that's what, again, make me kind of hesitant to say, you know, yeah, there's some of what this gentleman said that might make sense in some parts, but some parts doesn't add up. And that's why I'm like not 100% sure to say it is Arabic. Of course, we're not to the second level where we'll be able to read it, even if we say it's Arabic. So the symbols is the most important thing here for me that I'm looking at it. And those three symbols, we don't have them in Arabic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and this is just the final image, and just showing how, these, this was also that was connected, and you can clearly see here that there's a blotch here in the wood, but also here, these lines here are not connected. They're not connected. Now you get over here, this in particular, these two here would be connected, and it goes all the way to here. But when you look at this, it's just that, and that's just the opinion of the calligrapher. But
yeah,
and the other professors that also responded and looked at this, as well as yourself, pretty much all of you are on the same page with this.
Yeah, I mean, connecting, yes. I mean, it makes sense, the connecting. But
yeah,
what is the letters? It's not clear,
right.
The connecting. Yeah, but for me, what are those letters? I'm not able to say either in kind of 1% say that this letter is this or this letter is that. So yeah, some connect, some don't, but I don't know what are those letters, in Arabic, to be honest with you, if they are Arabic.
Yeah. So let me ask you this next question, because this is something that I've been kind of studying, and there's a divide about this conversation about Syro-Aramaic. The Quran version of, are you familiar with the Quran version of Syro-Aramaic? There was a German that was kind of pushing this notion. There's a video, I'm not going to play it for the sake of time, but the lettering and the way you look at it, it's not connecting as well with the way Arabic would. And in this aspect, and I know you mentioned Ajami, and you've taken that off the table as far as the script that we're going to look at. The characters that we're going to look at that I sent you, but in Ajami, what is the difference in Ajami and I guess I would say the modern Arabic script of writing?
So Ajami, it's, basically uses the same Arabic alphabet, like let's say Farsi does, and use some alphabets to refer to some sounds that are in other languages that don't exist in Arabic. For example, when we talk about sub-Saharan languages or dialects, there's some sounds in those languages that don't have or don't exist in Arabic, or don't have letters in Arabic. So they use the same sounds or the same letters to refer to those to those sounds that don't exist, but it's still the same alphabet. I will be able again to read Ajami. I'll be able to read it because it has Arabic alphabet. There might be some letters that I might not pronounce because I don't know those sounds, but overall, I will be able to read it. And I was not able to read that script that you sent me. And that's what made me think that, again, it's not Ajami, because there were some letters there that don't look like Arabic and don't connect like the Arabic letters do.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So let's go ahead here and move to this is what I sent you before. I sent you this, and I sent you the hypothetical.
Exactly.
And so let's kind of get into this.
They have a hard time reading, let's say, non-Arabic names written in Arabic. But for a native speaker, that's an easy task. Because my students are thinking in Arabic when they are reading. They're expecting Arabic. They are expecting to read Arabic, you know, but they are
Right.
reading the name Michael, for example, and they cannot figure out. So for somebody who, for example, native or Aramaic or studies Aramaic, you know, it will be easy for him to or her to decode what is written, you know, easy. But
Yeah, that
go
was
ahead.
what the other professor that I was showing you. It was from he said it would be Aramaic from the Nabatean period. Yeah, and that and but that wasn't his area. His area is
Yes.
Aramaic, but it's not from that period.
Yeah.
And so he suggested and referenced someone. So I'm waiting on them to finish
And
examining.
that's an old form of Aramaic, even in, you know, even you know, again, Arabic, talking about that, you know, that era. It's definitely you know, needs somebody who you know, specialized in that era, you know. So
Yes, sir.
I hope
Well,
you can find somebody who can.
yeah, definitely, Professor. And it's been great. We're at 6 o'clock, so I held you long enough. I don't want the wife to come looking
No.
for me, and my wife going to come looking for me as well. So, but
Well,
I thank you. You've been a help. You've truly helped a lot of people. You know, and the comments are there and whatnot. Does anybody have any questions? For Professor, we have like 2 minutes.
no, no
If you have
problem.
one
If
question.
there are any questions, no problem. I can answer.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
If you have any questions for Professor Saeed, definitely go ahead and put it in the comments, and I'll take like 1 or 2 of the questions.
While we're
I
waiting
know.
on the question, William, I just want to go back to Mogador, you know, and
Okay.
yeah, and I hope that one day you'll be able to visit it. The reason why I say that is Mogador is famous for its Jewish heritage and also African heritage, you know.
Mm,
As probably you heard it, I was not able to hear the documentary that you played, but the Portuguese used Mogador as a port to ship slaves
uh,
from Africa.
uh, Professor, you about to make me fall out of the chair. We was just talking about, and
Really?
I'm gonna send you a documentary that 2 of my cousins just did, and I want you to watch this documentary. And
Right.
it's dealing with the same thing that you're talking about. How, man, it's amazing. You know, just the Jewishness, because many of the Black Jews who went into as slaves into Portugal, they were shipped, you know, into around the world, you know, and whatnot. So I'm sorry I cut you off, but we were
No,
just talking. Go ahead, share some more. Share
no,
some
no,
more.
yeah, you're right. But again, the two reason why I want to emphasize, you know, that city, because of its Jewish heritage and its African heritage. Okay, there was a very big Jewish community that lived in Mogador for centuries until the establishment of, you know, Israel, when people started, you know, leaving and going to Israel. But even after that, a lot of Moroccan Jews stayed in Mogador. We call it As-Sawira, and there's a lot of history there with the, you know, the Mellah, the Jewish neighborhood, the Jewish cemeteries, the Jewish museum, the Jewish synagogues, a lot of, you know, Jewish history, especially Moroccan Jewish history. The other side also is the African history. Of course, those slaves were all Africans, you know, and the people that stayed that either were sick, you know, and couldn't, you know, they couldn't, of course, ship them. They knew that, you know, they're gonna die, you know, on the ships, or they were not worth, you know, the money. They stayed in Morocco, and after centuries or after years and years, became Muslims, you know, and
Mm,
there's and you know, and that's why there's a lot of black Muslims in Mogador, or black Moroccans in Mogador, because of that history. And there is a type of music, and I don't know if you like music,
yeah.
but there is a type of music called Gnawa. Okay, and I will send it to you, the
Okay.
name. it's a music that is in Arabic, but it's rooted in African, culture. So, and that's, you found it only in Mogador, where that music, it's sang by, people who are, let's say, grandchildren of of slaves that stayed in Morocco and either became Muslims or again Christians, but most of them became Muslims. So, and that music is really, really good to listen to. It's kind of spiritual music. That's how the people of the Gnawa people see it. It's a spiritual music. Of course, there's a lot of for somebody who's religious might see it a certain way, but
Right.
culturally, it's definitely worth listening to and maybe studying it, and also just knowing it. Just knowing it is probably the first thing, because it's a great heritage, a cultural heritage. And there's a festival that is that happens every year in Mogador, which is Gnawa music, and it's free, and it goes for a whole week with stages all over the city, and people come from all over the world to listen to that kind of music. And there are also Western, musicians that come and play with Gnawa musicians. Mostly, we're talking about, jazz musicians from the U.S. or blues musicians from the U.S. And they go to Morocco during that festival, and they kind of do collaboration between them and the Gnawa the musicians. It's just an amazing kind of music, and amazing town to visit, either during the festival or during other time. But I hope that you will have a time to visit it as an African American.
Yes, David Royal, the linguist, Hebrew linguist, says, he asked a question: do you know
Yes, sir.
the song Yaraya?
Ya Rayah, I think it's a song from Rai music. Yeah, it has roots in Algeria and the east of Morocco. We call it Rai music, Rai, and it's a beautiful song, Ya Rayah. And yes, I like it, and I listen to it, and I share it with my students, and hopefully William also will listen to it. I can share the name with you, in the future, so that you can listen to it. It's a beautiful music.
Definitely, I'm definitely planning on that. Those are two places that I want to go. One is to Morocco, to Mogador, and I want to go to Ethiopia. So those are the two places that I want to go.
Morocco, and I will talk more about that in the future, maybe you and I, but it's the only Muslim country that has a Jewish advisor to the king. And he was born in Mogador. It's the only Muslim country that has a Jewish advisor to the king. And not only he's the advisor of the current king, he was the advisor of his father when he was a king, and his grandfather when he was a king. So our advisor, who's a Moroccan Jew, was an advisor for 3 kings, and still the advisor. And he's from Mogador. And you will definitely learn a lot about him when you visit, Mogador.
Yeah, that's definitely a powerful, Professor, because the documentary, I was showing a small clip of it when you see Stephen Graham. He's going through one of the ancient synagogues there, and in that he was talking about the worship of the Black Jews as well as the Muslims. And he was showing in the ancient city how they were together. They're together, and they spoke both languages. And so his uncle is a Bedouin in the Middle East. So 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 I'm definitely learning a lot of things.
I hope so.
Culturally.
They were not just together; they're still together.
Okay.
They're still together. And I went to that same synagogue, many times before, but the last time, it was in 2017. I went to Morocco, and with me were two friends, a colleague of mine at Morocco who teaches political science, and his wife. And we went and visited that same synagogue. And I just want to let you, and I'll share a photo of that same synagogue. The person who's in charge of that synagogue was a Muslim woman, still a Muslim woman, wearing the veil, you know?
Wow.
So after the Jews left Mogador to go to Israel, a lot of those synagogues and houses were kept and well kept by Muslims themselves. And I remember even my friend asked that woman too if he can take a photo of her, and that's why I still have the photo. And she agreed, and we took the photo of her opening the Torah. So I will share it with you of that same synagogue.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. Well, Professor, it's been great. I thank you, and I'll if I have any questions, more than likely it's going to be others that are going to get on. It's about 70 of us in the group, and they send me questions afterwards and during the time. So I'll be emailing you some questions. I think this is great. And I really appreciate your time. You've really enlightened a lot of us just looking at the comments. This was great information. A lot of people, a lot of wows and a lot of emojis with head explosions.
I thank everybody, and I'm privileged to be with you guys, and I thank you, William, for inviting me. I hope that this conversation was kind of informative to you and other people, and please feel free to reach out anytime you have questions. It's been a privilege, even if I didn't have a chance to meet all your members, but just seeing you on camera and talking to you, I really appreciate it.